Here.
Mike Finnegan, Charles Gerlach, John Stutzman,
Here.
and we have a quorum.
Sorry, I think I was muted. This is Tim Gerlach.
He's here. Okay.
Great.
Now it's Pledge of Allegiance. So you can face your flag and say the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah. Now we're down to approval of the minutes. Has everyone looked at the previous minutes? Have any corrections due? Hearing no.
I move to accept the minutes as distributed.
Second. Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes as printed. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? No nays? Ayes have it.
Excuse me, Vice Chairman. The phone is ringing in here. Who seconded that motion?
I did. Dave Amspoker.
Okay, thank you.
Item 2, consideration of public comments. With the virtual meeting, in-person attendance is not there, so the public may submit in writing to the airport office or via email to Jake Platt, Janie at the city of Kingman.gov. Do you know?
Scott, you were freezing up there, but if you were asking if we got any comments, no, we did not.
Okay. I'll take the motion that no public comments were submitted at the time of the meeting. Do I have a? Do we have to vote on that?
I don't think we can never have before.
Okay.
Vice
Reports.
Chairman, there's no motion required.
Okay. Okay. Reports. Business. That'd be Bennett, I believe.
Yes. Good afternoon. Start off with giving you a little update on a marketing document that we're in the process of creating. This is a map or an overhead aerial of the park and the airport with all the businesses listed on that, as well as mapped out where their location is within the park and the airport side. So we're nearing completion on that document. Last time this was updated was back in 2012. So it'll be excited to get that one done. A little bit about rail. We've got, I'll give you some October, November, December numbers. In October, we had 618 cars stored. In November, we had 468 cars stored. And in December, we had the same amount, 468 cars stored. In regards to cars switched with businesses, in October, we had 172. November, we had 136. And in December, we had same amount, 136. The entryway into the industrial park, we started maintenance and landscaping of that entryway as of January 1st. And their job is to keep flight line or keep Mojave Airport landscaped all the way up the flight line and maintained. Another project that we've been working on for quite a while was the demolition of the what was the old shock center. That was completed last week. And we also took those parcels and combined them. And this will give us 3.6 acres of land ready to go to market and sell to industry. And we're currently getting, just in the time that we've started doing that, we've been getting some interest on that property. The little update on a project that's going through right now in the industrial park is Colt Builders. They have been making a lot of progress. They're actually ahead of schedule. Those buildings are being erected right now. We anticipate upon completion of that project, it'll be done in 3 phases. There will be about 50 employees and about $9 million capital investment into that project. Some prospects that we've been working on, a project called Rosie. This is a lead that came to us directly. They were looking for existing space up to 200,000 square foot. We've been working on this project since July of 2020, and we're hoping to, be to the point where negotiations on the site will result in hopefully the location of that business here. That will be about 60 employees using about 200,000 square foot and about a $7 million capital investment into that facility. Just this last week, we had a project that we call Project Mock-Up come into town. I was able to show them some sites in the industrial park. We also looked at some airport side sites and we toured them that area as well. They're looking for about an acre of property, and so we'll just continue to work with them and hopefully be able to find them a site that works. There's a little update on the 3 roads at the industrial park. We actually had the engineering designs approved on those 3 roads this last month. So we're working on bid documents right now. The project, as a reminder, what we're probably looking at doing that in two phases. We did get a grant for the first phase. It was a $275,000 grant. First phase of that, we're probably looking at doing Port Way attached flight line down to Olympic right there. And then a little update on the land release. This month, we've provided the FAA with multiple documents. We've sent over a cultural resource review, a land release agency scoping letter. We updated the APE exhibit, and that was based upon FAA comments that they sent us. We also have the phase 1 environmental due diligence audit completed and sent off to the FAA, and then a biological evaluation. Staff has been meeting with the FAA on a monthly basis. Our next scheduled meeting will take place on February 10th. So with that, that's my update. If you guys have any questions.
Anyone have questions on that?
I have one question. It's related to the website. I'm just curious if there's been any change or anything with that.
Yeah, I believe they had. I know there've been some changes and some edits that have been done. Lisa and I have been working with IT at the city. We spent the week before last. We spent a good 4 hours with them making some changes to the content and the layout. But there's obviously it's work in progress. We're always going to be updating and adding to that.
Okay, as person voted to head up that, am I no longer needed in that capacity, or what is your opinion?
I think that, you know, your insight is vital. What we did with staff was moving things around internally on the website, so it was things that IT had to do quicker than what I could do or Lisa could do. So it wasn't, there was some content, but not, I believe a lot of the content that you've sent in has been incorporated as well. But I think we need to get together probably again, Tim, and maybe you, Lisa, and I, and take a look at it again and see if a lot of the things that you had brought up have been addressed.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bennett, have they made the changes that you guys discussed? Are they live on the website now?
Many of them have been made. We did additional changes that above and beyond what Tim and I had discussed, or what Tim, was that you and Lisa, Tim, you guys had met?
Yeah, I was curious because I'd sent an email a while back and I never heard anything, and now I'm just getting caught back up and checked on it, so.
If I could just jump in, This is Lisa. Tim, the changes you had thought or suggested would make the website look better. We took that and also additional comments from the consultants. So yours was the base of what the changes we have already made on the website. So that was extremely helpful that you did that.
So the reason I asked whether the changes that you guys discussed at that meeting have been implemented is I would suggest that Tim goes in and takes a look, and provides any comments he might have on the work that's been done.
I agree.
Yep, I'll do that.
Okay, any other questions? I think that's it. We'll move on to item B, airport staff. So Joe, you're up.
Okay, I'm gonna put up my report, and that way you can follow along with me. I want to try to keep this as brief as possible, as there's not a ton of new information this week. I'll go over the budget report in the next agenda item. And I apologize that I didn't have that information all completed, but I was wanting to get this at least out to you a little bit before the meeting. But with regards to airport activity, you know, airport business development, Bennett has mentioned some of the things that he's been working on, both in the industrial park, and also he and I have been working with a couple of proposed operators that have talked about coming here. This is along the lines of aircraft storage and maintenance operators. We've gotten got at least 3 or 4, and we're continuing dialogue with 2 of them. One of them also provides, or excuse me, a different company actually provides services to the motion picture industry, you know, aircraft mock-ups and whatnot, and they're looking for a place to locate some of their storage and possibly do some of their work here. So that's continuing to go on. You know, hardly a week goes by we don't get just contacted by somebody who's interested in doing business at the airport. And here again, it's mostly related to the aircraft storage, aircraft maintenance. We are just in the final stages of completing another temporary SASO permit. This would be a 90-day permit for an operator that wants to come in and actually do the parting out and disassembly of an aircraft that's already being stored on the field on behalf of the owner of that. So we're completing that process, and again, it's relatively short term at 90 days, could even be less than that. It's cancelable with a 30-day written notice by either party. So that'll go on shortly. And then with regards to staffing and the staffing selection processes, we have received for the airport operations and maintenance, let's see, as of since our last meeting, we've had the second resignation of airport operations staff. So we're down to 1 airport operations and maintenance specialist currently working at the airport. We've been supplemented, as I mentioned at our last meeting, by Public Works Department's had a few different folks coming out to do some cross-training and to help us with some projects. And we also had a couple of temporary employees come out and do some cleanup in a few different areas around the drainage channel running along Mojave Airport Drive and some spots in the industrial park. But we have received 42 applications for the vacancy for the airport operations and maintenance specialist. We have 2 vacancies. And of those, we've selected 9 to interview on February 11th. So we've set that date, we've got everything going on it, and we expect to interview 9 candidates at that time. As far as the general manager selection process, that finally got moving and moved rather quickly, but we actually have received 15 applicants for the airport general manager process, and it looks like we're likely going to be interviewing about 6 candidates, and those interviews are set for the 17th of February. And so with any luck, those will be the initial interviews of the 6 candidates, and then we'll see where we go with finalists after that. I am hopeful that we can have a selection made by sometime in March, and then it's a matter of just when a successful candidate could potentially start. So that's the process. I originally thought I'd be here till February, and then I regrouped and said, no, I'll probably be here till the middle of March. And now I'm regrouping and say I'll probably be here until sometime in early April. But I really do anticipate that by March, we've got a good firm feel for a new candidate and a timeline for transition. So,
Hey, Joe, this is Bill.
Yes, Bill.
Will you be able to ensure that a commission member is on the interview panel for those candidates? Not the maintenance guys, I'm talking about the general manager.
No, I understand. And the question was, will I be able to ensure? I don't know that I can do that. You're stating that there's a design. We didn't have a commission member on the panel last time, so we weren't anticipating that we would have one on there this time. But let me talk to the HR department, and we're in the process of putting that together right now. So we've got.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Joe, Joe, this is Dave.
Yes.
If we can't have someone on the interviewing, can we at least meet with the 2 or 3 finalists, maybe the commission or like we did with the last time?
I don't anticipate that we're going to do the same type of a thing that we did last time, which was kind of an open house with you know, a variety of folks in attendance. Let me check with our HR section. I mean, I don't necessarily see a reason why not. So then it's just a matter of making the determination of a reason why, you know.
Well, I think we can come up with a reason why.
Okay.
The reason why is at least all of us here on the commission are very interested in the type of person that we're going to get to be the general manager.
Okay.
Also, Joe, this is Bill, having airport experience that others that may be on the panel might not have.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'll be on the panel, and I'm hopeful that I can provide, you know, some reasonable experience and background in airport management. But I can appreciate that users are important. And let me just look into it and respond to you within the next few days.
Sure, Joe, this is Scott.
Yes, sir.
It also, if that's the no-go, that item, would it be possible to get a sampling of the questions and maybe have some of our questions submitted from the commission, you know, like interview type questions, and HR would go through them in that. But at least if nobody's involved, that maybe we could have some of our questions we could bring up that we would deem.
By all means,
Is- is-
in fact, what I would say is if you have suggestions now for any questions that we may want to ask, please do submit them to me. You know, right now, we're just looking at the questions that we used last time. We just started doing that. And so it would be a good time to provide any input that you might have.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Staff scheduling security coverage, there's not much change since we last talked. What I had said is that I had planned to start an alternative or a different schedule covering 7 days of the airports at our last meeting. Well, we'll do that once we've got the vacancies filled. Right now, our one person is working about 7 days a week, coming in and doing the inspections and things like that. So it's still our intention to, expand that coverage. And then we've had discussion about the security coverage and possibly increasing that. And I'll talk a little bit more of that when I talk about the budget items in the next item. Airport projects, I've got no update on the oil site. We will get back to working on that when we have. I think I had promised to send you photographs. Did I do that or not do that? I think I failed to do that at the site that we're looking to develop. No, I think I showed them at our last meeting, the oil site pictures that what we have proposed to do. We've also put that in for project requests in our capital improvement project budget. Cover tie down, lighting investigation. I met with Commissioner Amspoker, and he shared a couple of, an LED light that he's used recently. So we plan on putting 1 or 2 of those up and see how they work. And then we're also continuing to look at potentially putting in some solar powered of some kind, whether it's what Commissioner Amspoker has suggested to us or whether it's a larger project. We still want to try to institute some covered tie-down lighting in the existing covered tie-downs. Surface painted hole position markings, we will get to that. But again, a lot of things have been put a little bit on hold while we finish filling our vacancies. Door seal replacement, I've made no project on that other than the material, as I said, is here. The material that we have is here. It's laid out in the shop, getting flat. And also we've got the new scissor lift that's in position. Runway project is nearly complete, although we discovered that they actually mispainted a couple of lines. This isn't a big deal, but because our runway is 150 feet wide, the shoulder lines, the edge lines of the runway, are supposed to be 36 inches in width, and they painted them 18 inches in width. So when they come back to make those few electrical repairs, they're going to have to put in another 18 inches on the outboard of them. I still don't know when we're going to have that scheduled, but I don't think it's going to be too terribly much longer. In the meantime, the runway certainly is in good condition and serviceable, although a little wet and it's snowing again. How about that? Taxiway Bravo project continues to move forward. We have, at the last council meeting, had the grant approved. We've returned that to the FAA, to ADOT Aeronautics for final execution. So we're waiting on that. In the meantime, the contractor is working on the completion of the design of the project. The fence project, we're moving forward on that. We actually, I'll talk a little bit about the grant later, but we're getting closer and closer. We're actually hoping to use a cooperative agreement to get that work done for the fence relocation phase 1. Landscape services, and I realize I jumped past one. Landscape services, we've actually started a monthly landscape service of Mojave Airport Drive all the way from 66 to Flight Line. That started a couple of Thursdays ago. They're actually out here more than once a month. It's monthly service, but they're actually here 2 to 4 times a month to do work out there, and that's basically when they're out there in this part of the town on their routes. So that has started. And then terminal painting and landscaping. In about 2 weeks, I think, and it could even be less than that, we're expecting to have the exterior of the terminal painted. And then we're also installing gutters on the terminal. And then the landscape project, we got the final of the proposed design from the engineering department. This is for the airside portion of the landscaping to correct the drainage failure. And the engineer's estimate is quite pricey. We're sharpening our pencils on that right now, and I've also put that project into the capital improvement for next year. It looks like we're just not going to have the available funds this year to complete that work. We had put $12,000 in the budget for landscaping, and to do it properly, and that's to really correct the drainage. There's about a 3-foot difference in grade between the elevation of the apron and the elevation of the finished floor of the terminal. And unfortunately, it's 3 feet in the wrong direction. But anyway, so we've got some good ideas of how we can repair that. And then ultimately we'll do the landscaping. So those are the projects.
What were they charging? What was their price?
Well, we don't have a price. We have an engineer's estimate based on what they designed to do, and that's to change some grades around, put in a trench drain along the edge of the apron, connect that to the storm drain line, and then there's some concrete, repair the main entryway so it'd be at proper 88 grades. So anyway, what they've estimated, and there's 2 power poles, or excuse me, light poles out there that are kind of in the middle of and so we would either abandon or relocate those. That's a pricey item. The 2 high-ticket items are the trench drain and the relocation of the lighting poles. Okay, so they gave us an estimation of $165,000, to which I said, "Ooh, that's a lot of money." So we're looking at that and perhaps going to do some value engineering on that while still maintaining to do what's necessary to appropriately and fix it for, the future. So I'm hopeful to get that down to more in the $100,000 range, and I'm quite sure we can do it. As I mentioned at our last meeting, the airport division now reports to the Public Works Department, and actually my boss and my boss's boss are on this meeting. In cooperation with the Public Works Department, we think there's 2 things we can do. One is perhaps do some value engineering of things that may or may not be exactly required, precisely required. And then also we can potentially do some of the work in-house or using materials that we already have. So that's where we are on that. More to come. As I said, we don't have the money in the budget to do that project this year. It's not the dollars, it's the approved budget. We just don't have the budget capacity to do a project like that this year. And so it's likely that the final project's not going to be completed until after the first of the fiscal year, after July 1st. Does that answer your question, Mr. Commissioner?
Yes.
Yeah.
Joe?
Yes?
You kind of briefly touched on painting, but did you get a chance to try any of those chains out that you showed me?
So the chain that I showed you, I actually sent back, and was able to send it back. And it was because the links weren't long enough to properly do it.
Right.
So I ordered a longer internal, well, anyway, that's not right either. So, I might be sending that back.
Well, the S-hooks.
Go ahead.
The S-hooks we decided were primarily the problem.
Right.
And I thought they would fit on the existing chains.
Yes, they will.
Has there been any movement on those?
We've replaced some S-hooks. And pardon?
You did, good.
Yeah, and we've also ordered more of that same size. So we're working on it. It's a process.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. FAA and ADOT coordination, all of our grants are pretty much up to date. In fact, I would say all of our grants are up to date. We've found a couple of invoices, one from April and one from August that had not been paid, but neither of those are grant reimbursable. So all of our reimbursements and grants are up to date. In fact, we're getting ready to close the master plan grant because we've just completed all the work except for some of the final printing. However, we're able to close the grant because we spent all of the money. And so we have a little bit of printing costs that we'll probably have to pay out of our budget, but that's nearly done and that's getting ready to be closed out. Part 139, I received the clarification letter from the IRS, from the FAA that said that there would be no detrimental effects of surrendering our certificate. And I was completely satisfied with that. That was approved. The surrender of the Part 139 certificate was approved at the City Council meeting with the beginning of this month. And I've actually, just last week, sent the letter to the FAA indicating that we were surrendering our certificate with an effective date of something like the 18th or 17th or something like that. So we've surrendered the Part 139 certificate, and we're just waiting on their acknowledgement letter, which has been drafted, and we're just waiting on the signed copy to come to us. The land release process, Bennett mentioned that we've been doing a lot of work on that. There is, just as an example, we're finishing up a phase 1 environmental study of the entire area. We've got a final version of our area potential effect that's been created. We've got the purpose and need report that goes in very soon. That's been approved at the airport level. And there was something, and most importantly, we actually have our first public meeting that is scheduled to take place on the, oh goodness, it is February, I want to say it's the 8th. It's Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll be having our first public meeting. It'll be a hybrid meeting. There will be some availability to attend on a limited basis in the council chambers, and the rest of it will be through the Zoom format. So we're moving pretty well along on our land release process. And we're hopeful, as I said, right now the final completion of that is scheduled out into October of 2021, but we're hoping to actually get that a little sooner. The CARES Act grant, we've put together all of the documentation that we need to send in to get the reimbursement for the CARES Act. That's the money that will potentially assist us with completing the fence project. But the CARES Act, as I mentioned, is reimbursing us for operational costs. So essentially we're getting paid back for staff wages up to $69,000. And then once we receive that, we use that found money within the budget to do the fence project. We're working on doing that under, as I said, an existing cooperative agreement, and the engineer is still working on putting the final specs together on the project. So that's moving along. A little more progress every month. The FAA drainage study update grant, that is moving along. We received a request for some information from the FAA, which is usually indicative of they're getting ready to start getting the grant ready to issue. So there's a few things that we need to provide to them, but all of the big stuff has already been taken care of. The environmental clearance, the application, of course, has been sent in, all of that stuff. So I expect that we'll receive that sometime late winter, early spring, and can start on the update of the grant.
Joe,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but do you have the date? You've got the date of 2/8 for that land release meeting. Do you know the time of the meeting?
It is 1630, I believe, or 1600 local. Forgive me, I'm going to go ahead and look at my calendar just to make sure I've got the date correct.
So it's either 4 or 4:30 in the afternoon?
It is.
Okay.
And why? Let me correct that. That is actually the 4th of February.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's the 4th of February, and it's from 4 to 5:30 is really the amount, what we've sort of established as the time of the meeting.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And let me get back here. Well, maybe. Sorry, I'm now having a difficult time getting my Zoom back here. Well, okay. Controls. Well, this is interesting. I apologize for this, but I don't know where everything, I went to my calendar and now everything is gone. I'll see if I can find it.
Last thing you were talking about was the.
Well, I can find that. I mean, I can find what I was reading off of. What I can't find is the,
Info.
you know, maybe this is it. So, okay, let us, continue, drainage study, taxiway B, runway match grant. I'm still waiting on that from, the ADOT. So can you still see my report screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good,
Yes.
good. And then finally, so we ran into a little snag on the backhoe that we were working on getting a backhoe from, that had been reclaimed from, I think it was like a seizure, or drug seizure or something like that. Well, we've got a problem in it that is gonna potentially take, just to be sure what the problem is in order to break open the transaxle and gears in the rear of the, it's gonna be 10 grand. And so we're not sure, we haven't really spent any money on it now ourselves. And so we're not sure maybe that's the best idea. I'm not concerned about it. You know, I've been here, what, 3 or 4 months, 4 months now? We haven't had any need of a backhoe since I've been here. We still have equipment available at Public Works. So we'll kind of figure out where we're going to go from there, but it's likely that we're not going to continue with that one. As I said, the scissor lift has been delivered here. This is its new home. It's a piece of equipment that will reside here, and then if it's needed elsewhere in the city, we'll transport it. And then I think I mentioned the FOD boss before. I'm still hopeful to actually acquire that, and actually the chances are good this year now that we're not going to spend the backhoe money, because we were holding out, you know, 5,000 to 10,000 for tires and other items. So we probably will buy that this year, that FOD boss. Draw site update. I actually had an opportunity to meet with Mr. Cooper, and they're cautiously optimistic that this is moving a little bit. Once they accept this material disposal plan, they're going to launch right into the design of the mitigation, you know, the actual work that needs to be done. And, you know, there's thoughts that this could actually be done within the next, you know, could be 12 to 18 months after more than 8 years of fooling around with this. I reiterate, this is cautiously optimistic, but it seems that there is some movement. So that's my story there. And this last item, the holiday on 2/15, we've already addressed that. And of course, our next meeting date will be on the 22nd of February. And so that is the last of this part of my report. Are there any further questions? Yes, that's nice. So let me stop. I'll keep sharing this. And let me go on to the division budget report, which is the next item on the agenda.
One thing, I have a question, Joe, or a comment.
Okay, yes.
We talked about the hangers needing the door, the rubber in the door, and I know that's what the scissor lift would be useful for. And you're going to investigate the rubber or talk to West Coast. Have you had a chance to? You have. Okay.
No, I have not. But I've got that in my notes to make contact with those guys over there and see if there's a material that's local that's better or at least as good. And we will do that. You know, right now we've got one person,
right,
and it's at least a 2-person job. So we will get back on that. It's on my radar. I won't let it fall off.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, then that's the airport report, Mr. Chairman. And then moving to the airport airport budget report, the next agenda item. You can see on your screen that this is through December 31st, which puts us halfway through the fiscal year. Our revenues have been $707,883 versus the $822,000 in expenses, which includes encumbrances. So the total with encumbrances and actuals is 58% of the budget, so we're a little over the 50% of the year. But if you take out the encumbrances, you get down to what we've actually spent this year, $424,062, and that's only 30% of what's budgeted. So I would say that our budget performance is going along quite well. And revenues and expenses versus the airport versus industrial park, as I mentioned, 707.83 is our total revenues for the airport and industrial park, of which that's broken out 604,490 and 103,393 airport versus industrial park. I don't have the expenses, the breakout of the expenses this month, but other than there's been no significant expenses. We did have expenses with regard to the shock center, but some of that was grant funded and some of it was out of our budget. So I think that was already included in the last month's. Anyway, I'll catch up next month. I apologize that I don't have that piece of the data. That's an item that you just can't run out of the budget report. It actually has to be handpicked out of our revenues report. We're hopeful that in the next budget cycle, we're able to do a better job of identifying revenue centers and cost centers, which we don't currently have. We basically have one revenue center and more or less one cost center. We've got more than one revenue center, but we want to be able to identify those expenditures in the budget software without having to go pluck those out manually.
Joe, shouldn't the sheriff's office pay for the shock center repair or removal?
No.
I'm sorry, your question?
Shouldn't the sheriff's office have?
I cannot answer that, Dave.
Yeah,
Sorry. I don't know enough about the whole project, but so I just can't answer that question.
Okay.
Okay. Fuel flow. So 75,000 gallons year to date. I think we had about, I want to say $24,000, excuse me, 24,000 gallons in the month of November. But it brings us up to 75,000 year to date on fuel. And then I wanted to just give you some basic information about the budget process. We're waist deep in the budgeting process for fiscal 22. And so I had submitted to our CIP system for the airport CIP budget. I submitted another pulse of industrial park roads, and that's dependent on whether we get another grant or not. Also, a project to clean up the burn pit, which is on the parcel. I think it's 16-acre parcel. We've talked about that before. We had a report done on it several years ago, and I think it was budgeted and then it wasn't done. We are investigating whether we can get a grant. I've got to call into ADEQ to see if their Brownsfield program might provide a grant for that project. However, that's been submitted. We've submitted a flood control berm repair, and that's such a long story, I don't even want to get into it right now. We submitted the waste collection site, land release consulting and expenses for the land release project that we're working on, terminal drainage improvements, that's the back side of the terminal or the air side of the terminal, security fence installation phase 2. Right now we're doing phase 1. I put in a project for phase 2. Taxiway D rehab, PAPI repair, and Taxiway B design and construction. Those are all future grant projects. And then I put in the cover tie downs again at essentially the same as we had last year, which was estimated at $250,000 for developing another row of cover tie downs. So those are the projects that we put into the capital program. We put them in, we cost them, and we prioritize them. And so the next step is working through the approval process, getting them approved, essentially. Ultimately, there'll be decisions made you know, at the city management level and then ultimately at the city council level. So we're working on that process.
Excuse me. On the budget, I'm curious, this is for 2022, if there's any thought of putting money towards an event on the airport.
So not in the capital budget. I guess, what event are you speaking of and how much are we talking about? Because capital projects are typically over $50,000 and result in some kind of a capital improvement.
All right. Yes, I missed the capital part. But we're looking at another event for 2022.
So we can talk about that here in one more step, but so you're talking about the Air Fest?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I can certainly, I'll talk about that in just a second. So the other thing that we do every year is we re-list and reprogram our grants. So all of that's been done. You know, I won't get into all that detail, but that was the second part of the project. Those two things have been completed. The next thing to be completed, to be started and then ultimately completed, is the operating budget development. And so each year we look at what we spent, what we got, and what we want to spend for next year. So that's going to be occurring in February. And right now I'm planning to submit, we need to cost out the landscaping that we're doing, that we just recently did. That's one addition to the budget for the monthly landscaping. That'd be split between the industrial park budget and the airport budget, which are actually the same, but it's an accounting deal. We're also looking at an additional position, bringing back the supervisor position. I've mentioned that before, so that's being put into the budget in the supplemental. We've talked about expanding our security coverage, so I'm putting that in the budget supplemental, and that's up to $75,000 a year. Some money for pavement maintenance, some money for electrical maintenance. I think I've mentioned these before. And then everything else is really capital. Now, we certainly have a line for airport events in the budget. And so this is the first I've heard that we needed to budget for that. Perhaps you could give me some idea offline about what you think the airport's responsibilities are. I mean, I know what we did in 2018, and to a lesser degree, I know what was done in 2019. But this is the first I've heard that we should budget for that. So I'd be happy to talk to you about that.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Say, Joe?
Yes.
All these items you've gone over, can we get a listing of them? Because they weren't on any piece of paper I've had, so I like to look over and mull it over a little bit before I'm gonna say anything or whatever.
Sure. So what I've got is a list of, it's right, I'll send it to you, but it's just called budget addition. So it's that big. But I'll send that to you tomorrow.
Hey, Joe, this is Bill.
Yes, Bill.
I want to thank you, and probably on behalf of most, if not all, the commissioners for getting the shade hangers into the budget for review, of course. But it's been 3 years we've been trying to get this, and one thing's led to another. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that, and I'm glad to do it. I also believe that it's a worthwhile investment for the airport to make. So, I just need to finish making this note. Okay, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, that's my budget report unless there's other questions.
Anyone else have any questions for Joe? Item 4B is next up, rates and fees. Joe, do you want to give a little background? You provided additional information, and I hope everyone has got it.
I'd be happy to do that. So in the course of my research of trying to find out what other airports charge for large aircraft storage, one of the folks that I had asked about had sent me this document. It's a rate and fee study that Pinal County did for Pinal Airport, Air Park, and San Manuel. Well, the bottom line is there's a lot of good information in there that was recently surveyed. The date of the report was November of 19, so it's not like it's brand new. But what it did was it actually compares all kinds of things: fuel flow fees, T-hangers, tie-downs, large aircraft storage, all of that. So I just thought it would be worthwhile to send it to all of you. So it wasn't for as much of a specific reason as much as, you know, this is something that I know you guys have been working on. It gives you just that much more information that's comprehensive over a number of airports. So that was the reason that I sent it. Now, back to this, what I discovered, and these are not 100%, you know, dead on accurate, but the research that I did showed that Roswell charges about $300, and they actually do it by day, and they do it by aircraft design group. So I kind of took this group 2 and group 3 and put them together and came up with kind of an average. But they charge about $300, a little less, a little more, depending on the size of the aircraft, for monthly aircraft storage. Goodyear charges about $195, and it's actually like $196 and change, because I think they charge the tax on it or something, but, or maybe it's just the way the CPI has accelerated it. But the Goodyear is charging $195 for large aircraft storage. Pinal Air Park charges very little, and they've actually proposed in this document that's proposed that they would charge between $250 and $300 a month for aircraft storage. That's what they are looking at getting done. And then Marana charges $284 for large aircraft storage. And so we're a little under, but we're not in a terrible condition, I don't think. I asked Mojave in California and didn't get a response from them. I sent an email, and you know, because it's California, it's not really apples to apples. I really didn't put a lot of effort in trying to nail them down. But you know, if you look at Goodyear's considerably under, and the rest are a little bit over at 284 and 350 or 300. But we're in the neighborhood. We're not doing too bad compared to others in the state. Now, I'm not saying it's not worth looking at, worth adjusting, but that's what I've discovered based on the direction given by the commission at the last meeting. So I give you that information and then turn this back to you guys for the old, you know, continuation of the old business.
Sure. My general thought on this is I would probably like to discuss some now, but I haven't looked at it close enough to take it in, and I don't know how much everybody else has, but table this issue till next month where we can look at it and dissect it good, because it does have a lot of nice information. It really is a nicely done report. I do believe they looked at some variables. How does everyone else feel? Do I have comments about that?
I absolutely agree. It's a pretty comprehensive report, and I have not had time to go through it well. I like the preliminary information that Joe just gave us. I like where it seems that we are with our commercial plane storage. But I would move that we table this until our next scheduled meeting.
I agree with that.
I second it.
Okay, well, let's have a motion first then.
I thought it.
Bill, you want to change that to a motion then? And
I did.
okay.
Yeah,
Motion.
it was a motion, I thought.
And a second.
And I seconded it. Joe, if you could you reiterate, what are we charging for a commercial prop and a commercial jet? I think the prop is like 127 or something, isn't it?
It's more than that. I want to say it's 160 something or 190, and then about 250 for the large aircraft. Give me one moment. I'll give you a quick. Go ahead and carry on, and I'll come back and give you that.
So I have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor
Aye.
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 Aye. All against? No nays? The ayes have it. So we were gonna defer that till next month. Next item is item C, 4C, on commission chair, vice chair positions. I guess I expected to have some candidates available, and right now there are no candidates. So again, I'd like to do what we did with the last item, is table this one until next month. How's that,
I agree with that, but I'd like to ask Joe, where are we on the candidate selection? I know we have applications. What's the holdup?
First, let me tell you this, that the storage fees are $122.96 and $246.29. So let's call it 125 and 250.
okay,
And what point,
125.
yeah, so I said 127,
That's pretty close.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, now back to
Bills.
yeah.
Replacements.
I can't say. I know we received an application last month, another one, and then we received an updated application from one of the commissioners this month. In fact, I just got that today. They are aware that the council has been filling vacancies for various commissions. So, I know they did a couple of them at the first January meeting. They may have done them some more at this most recent second January meeting. I don't know exactly where they are. I know that the clerk's aware that there are vacancies, and I know that they are, aware that we have applications.
I did email Ken Watkins, our liaison. I see he's not online, and I didn't receive a reply, but I know they didn't vote on any, so we're in a hold, but I do have a email out there asking that issue, so hopefully I'll get something, and if I do, I'll forward it to everyone on the commission.
Thanks, and I want to show my appreciation. I know Commissioner Stutzman has reapplied, so one assumes he's going to re-up. But I want to thank you, Scott, for continuing to serve until your replacement is appointed. So I just want to let you know how much we appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we table the selection of chair and vice chair until our next scheduled meeting.
I'll second that.
Oh, good, John. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item 5, announcements by commissioner of upcoming what you want to do. Do I have anyone that wants to list anything? No? Well, then we'll just let.
Not much going on.
Okay. Yeah, it's.
Mr. Chairman, so I will continue these. Essentially, next month's agenda will look almost identical to this month's agenda. If anybody does have anything that they'd like to see, please get that to Mr. Chairman Brackett, and then he'll give it to me. But otherwise, we'll look forward to the next one.
Okay, sounds good, Joe. Item 6, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Aye.
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 Okay.
Good to see you all. Tim,